Hello and welcome to this video on reducing foliage size of copper beech. This video focuses on beech, and in this case specifically copper beech, as they are somewhat temperamental when compared to other species like maple, oak and figs. With just about all beech species, you will need to reduce the foliage size. This is because the tree has very large leaves under normal circumstances. Even when planted in a bonsai pot, it will try to develop large leaves at first. You need to stop this from happening to get the proper ratio of size. Defoliating should be done once every 2 years at most, as it can be quite the strain on your bonsai. If you are training it in a much larger pot, or in the ground, you can try annual defoliation. Getting straight into the details, your first consideration when trying to reduce the size of your beech foliage is to never remove all of the leaves. This does not mean you cannot remove some of the foliage, and this is very much the same process as for any other defoliation, just less extensive. Take your leaf cutters and cut at this point. It will leave a small stem behind. This will die and fall off of the tree. Soon after this, new leaves will start to grow. One noteworthy element of this is that although new growth will occur very soon, they will also grow in a different way. These new returning leaves look different from the original. They generally are flatter, rounder, and somewhat twisted. They're considered unsightly, but over time they will eventually change into the right form, or at least next year when you have new foliage, you'll get proper leaves developing then. So this is another reason to consider only partially defoliating your tree. When pruning the leaves or defoliating, you want to try and do this during summer. Late spring and possibly early autumn can work, but beware of the risks that we're about to mention. The reason you want to prune in summer is a combination of healing and growth. If you prune leaves or defoliate in midsummer, for instance, you will get rapid healing of any wounds on the tree. This means all those cut branches and the little petioles that fall off from the leaves should recover very quickly. This minimises the chances of infection. You can begin pruning the moment any new shoots begin to darken in colour and take it back to 2 branches. This will ensure you get ramification, but if you wait until summer, you'll be able to better get an idea as to what's happening, and you'll get more recovery sooner. If you want to take more risks, you can try pruning in later autumn or even winter. The problem with this is that the branches can die back somewhat when this happens, particularly if they dry off. This is one reason why summer is ideal. Late spring or early autumn are the absolute extremes of when you should be doing this. Another option to pruning, or perhaps better to say an alternative, is to pinch out any new growth in spring. Rather than cutting, which leaves a much larger open wound, this leaves, largely just a crushed surface and prevents growth from that point forwards. This does encourage ramification and can help to balance growth when needed. It's the alternative in that you don't need to worry about it affecting the health of the tree overall, and you can do this much earlier, honestly during spring. What you do is, once the leaves have burst from their bud and begun to harden off, you take your fingers and you squeeze and you pinch out the tips of where those leaves are growing from at the bottom. This crushes that location and leaves will be removed. This is particularly useful if you're trying to balance your tree overall. By pinching out shoots or new growth buds, you can balance what isn't going to develop. Allowing an area to have only 2 leaves, whereas you allow others to have many more, ensures those areas with more leaves will grow more aggressively. This means you can limit growth, and if you need to worry about what parts of your tree are better developing than others, this is how you do that. One thing we do need to mention is that you should be very careful with your beech. In fact, any kind of beech. This just happens to be a copper beech in question. The bark is very soft and delicate. it can be damaged easily when pruning or by wire. If you are defoliating as part of your styling, for instance, you should be careful of any damage you might cause to your beech. It will be very obvious and is very easily done. This is why you need to be careful in what you're doing and how. If you're looking at pruning, as mentioned, be aware that you need to be concerned about healing and recovery of your tree, and when trying to balance growth, make sure you don't affect the entire tree, or for that matter when you're defoliating. If you need to wait a couple of weeks between defoliating one part of the tree and then another, wait. Rushing into this will only cause the tree to either die back very aggressively, in which case you've now undone much of your work, or you're going to stagnate the tree's development, which can be just as bad. Thank you for watching this video. If you found it interesting, consider liking, sharing, and subscribing. Please post any comments, questions, or suggestions you have below.